So Jaylen Brown has missed the last 2 games with the left Achilles tendonitis, and Boston is trying to play it cool, listing him as day to day. But Peyton Pritchard, which is your boy, stepped up with 28 in Sunday's win over Charlotte. But this is the playoffs knocking on the door. So Matthew, how worried should the Celtics fans be about the word Achilles 2 weeks before the postseason?
I mean, you don't love it, but let's assume that it's not something crazy serious. Let's assume it's just he's aggravating. He's not gonna really be hurt. What you don't like here is you have a chance to press because the Pistons, the team you've been chasing all year, is all of a sudden without Cade Cunningham. So in theory, you would have had a chance to go get the number 1 seed. Now they've lost. They lost a couple games integrating Tatum, so I don't think they're going to catch the Pistons for the 1 seed. But in theory, you had that chance, and so you have these bumps integrating Tatum, and it's like, how is Brown going to give up being the lead dog all year? Is he going to want to do it? And I think the answer was going to be no. I think for at least this year, it was going to be Brown's team. But now Brown's injured, and now Tatum's there.
Right.
So now Brown misses a week. You got to reintegrate him. Then Tatum says, it don't take long for a star player to say, okay, this is my team again. I mean, because it's been Tatum's team. Besides those first couple of years with Kyrie, it's been Tatum's team. He's been the 1A and Brown's been the 1B. So, I mean, that dynamic switched at the end of this year when he came back where Brown was kind of the 1A. But it's not going to take that long for Tatum to say, no, I'm the star. I mean, you look at that game the other day against the Hornets, which, I mean, that's a great win to beat the Hornets. The Hornets have been the hottest team in the NBA, maybe second and third hottest team. Tatum puts, you're talking about Pritchard. Well, let's talk about the star player. Let's talk about Tatum. Plus 15, 32 points, 12 for 23. I mean, just an all-around good game. So, when he's reintegrating the offense and Brown's putting up 30 and Tatum's putting up 15 because he's shaking off the cobwebs, it's like, oh, this is Brown's team. But if you're saying you put Tatum at the 1A and he's putting up 35, now Brown comes back in a week, I feel like it's just the worst time for a Brown injury. Because this is where you want guys to be clicking. You want guys to know their role. And what it's going to end up being is maybe a little bit of an awkward your turn, my turn. But I think Joe Mazzulla is a good enough coach and the schemes are good enough. And like the star role players that are stars in their role are good enough to where maybe you can get away with maybe the schemes are good enough that you don't have to worry about like whose team it is. But I remember, one recent example I remember in 2020, the Rockets were beating everybody up and they had Harden and Westbrook. But then, Westbrook's playing the best ball of his life. He injures his quad. He comes back in the bubble. The fit's never as seamless as it was before he injured his quad. Him and Harden never quite got on the same page. Brown and Tatum have been playing together a lot longer than that. But you just, if you're the Celtics and you're Brad Stevens and you're Joe Mazzulla, I just think this injury couldn't come at a worse time because this is the time you want to be gelling. This is the time when you're peaking at the right time. It's when you're peaking right now, heading into April. And so you're trying to integrate Tatum. Now you're going to have Brown out for a little bit. And I just don't like the timing of all this for Boston.
Right. And listen, to follow that up, so the Celtics have been quietly managing this. Brown originally showed up on a report with just a calf tightness, and then it got reclassified to Achilles, which is, never a word you want to hear upgrade in severity, right? But Boston just hit 50 wins and clinched the top 4 seed. So the smart move is just to bubble wrap them, right? Just set them out. But if this lingers into April, their entire defensive identity changes. Brown's on-ball pressure is what makes their switching scheme work, and Pritchard just can't replicate that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you bubble wrap him right now, I mean, there's still 7 more games. So you bubble wrap him right now, then you're saying, oh, okay, well, he's going to get his groove back in the playoffs. Oh, we're going to integrate him and Tatum seamlessly into the offense together in the playoffs. So, I mean, I don't have it in front of me right now who's the 7 seed. It's basically a logjam right there with Miami and Orlando and Charlotte. And yeah, like if you get Orlando, you could probably work it out in the first round. But if you're playing like a team with like defensive principles, like Miami, or you're playing a team that's hot as hell, like Charlotte, that on any given time can just burn 10 straight 3-pointers on you. Not 10 straight, but you know what I mean. Any given time can go 10 for 15 on a stretch from 3. I mean, that's dangerous times. If you bubble wrap Jaylen Brown right now and you play Charlotte, or if you play Miami in the first round, especially you play Charlotte, I mean, those are
Yeah.
dangerous hours. So, I mean, I see
So
what you're saying.
let me give you those. So the
Mhm.
7, 8, 9, and 10. 7 is Philly, which is 41 and 33, and they got the big three back, which we're going to talk about that in a minute. Then you got Orlando, 39, 35. That's who you really want. And we're gonna talk about how they blew it just the other day. Miami Heat, which is 39, 36. Miami Heat really isn't too big of a threat. To me, they're not, right? I think they're just in the ninth place just because the East isn't really that strong. But number 10 is Charlotte Hornets, a 39 and 36. You know the crazy part, Matthew? We talked about this other day, how you talked about how well below 500 they were, and now they 39 and 36, right?
Uh-huh.
This team is really firing all cylinders, even though they lost the other day when the big three came back for Philly. But still, any other team besides the top 2 3 teams, uh, Charlotte's going to do really good. But yeah, so like you said, if things were to stay it was right now, unfortunately, it'd be against Philly, but I don't think that's how it's going to, stay.
I mean, even if it was against Philly, we're about to talk about how Philly's got their big three back and how their big three look good. Now, there's no guarantees because you know how it goes with Embiid.
Yeah,
And there's no guarantee the
exactly.
playoff P is gonna be hitting them consistently. I think
Playoff P.
I think he's a great player, but I think at this stage of his career, there's no guarantee that he's gonna be hitting them consistently. I'm a
Right.
huge Paul George
You
fan.
are.
Huge
Man,
fan.
are you a bigger fan of Paul George or are you a bigger fan of Westbrook?
Oh, that's not even close. It's Westbrook all day. But I'm actually a pretty big fan of Paul George because I watched him play with Westbrook for 2 years in OKC, to a
Yeah.
lesser extent when they played together with the Clippers. But uh, the second year Westbrook and Paul George were together was probably Paul George's best year of his career. And,
Right.
that year he was like a 6'9" Kyrie. It was like,
Yeah.
he had the size, he had the defense, he had the shooting, he had the handle. It was
Yep.
like, I always say, if you could make, now, this isn't to say who's the best, who's not the best, but if you were creating
Yeah.
the perfect basketball player in the lab,
Uh-huh.
you'd probably spit out Paul George. Now
What?
there's no that look, there's
Okay.
intangibles, all of that. We know
All
he's
right.
not the best player, but in terms of having the whole package of size, handle, shooting, defense, if you were in the lab making a perfect basketball player, you'd come damn close to Paul George. Now at this stage of his
Hey, hold on,
career,
hold on. Everybody that's out there, 48 listeners live right now. If you're in that chat right now, drop your comment down below if you agree with Matthew. Go ahead, Matthew.
and it's not just, I mean, there's intangibles. He's missed out on some big moments. He's been on a lot of teams that choked in the playoffs. But I'm just saying, in terms of, the package he's bringing, he's a pretty damn good player when he's at his best. And so you put him, Embiid, Maxey together, and you're the Celtics, and you might have to
Uh-huh.
play them in the first round
Hmm.
without Jaylen Brown, or with Jaylen Brown come missing 7 games. So that's why, if he's healthy, I don't know about bubble wrapping him, because 3 out of 4 of those teams you might have to play in the first round are going to
Okay.
give you trouble. Now, I know you're sleeping on Miami, but Miami's a team no matter what players are on their roster. And I know we can't name but maybe 3 or 4 players on their roster, but that's a well-coached team that's always going to have good defensive principles. And when you're coming back from an injury and your shot's rusty and you play a team like Miami that's going to put you in hell with their defensive principles, then things could get ugly. And even if you win the series, it could stretch longer than you want and go 6 or 7 when it should have went